And welcome back. And here we are with part eight. And what I've been tending to do is just recap, usually just the last one, to just check what we've already covered and, find ways to continue from that. And maybe even just fill in a few details that I may have missed out before, just to make sure we're really covering everything as much as possible. So I do want to go back to what I mentioned about Butch DeFeo saying in an interview that he always knew George and Kathy Lutz, that he did drug runs with them, provided them with recreational drugs that he was known for using himself, and suggesting that everything was planned from the start. Now, apart from, like I've already mentioned, he was known for being a pathological liar, and so why would this suddenly be taken seriously? Other than people who would wish to damn George and Kathy and say, yeah, that's it, he said it. Suddenly he's the great bringer of truth. Yeah, that's very questionable in itself. But the other thing that I really wanted to bring up here, that I do wonder how many people have considered this, is that what he was saying there was that they were part of a plan and a premeditated murder case. Is that what he was really saying? I do wonder whether many people have considered this. Was it a case of, right, okay, so we're all in it together, we'll get him to murder his family, and then we'll buy the house and tell a load of lies about being plagued by paranormal, entities and demons and all sorts. We're gonna then we'll try and say that it was all down to that. So you'll get off the hook and he won't go to prison. Now, I don't think I'd be alone in saying that sounds absolutely ludicrous, and there seems to be nothing else out there that supports the idea of Butch ever knowing that couple, before the big stories, before the murders, and before George and Kathy's time there with their family. That just seems to have come from nowhere. Uh, it does seem as well that in that same documentary, again, I'm not going to mention the name. Some of you will know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to mention the name for libel reasons. But it is one that features quite heavily Geraldine Gates, who could also have been known as Geraldine DeFeo. And we're talking a woman who comes across as very, very angry and very sort of confident, arrogant, actually, as she's, sitting there being interviewed, telling these stories very, very confidently and very aggressively, even. And she's allegedly coming out of the woodwork after a number of years saying that, yeah, she was married to Butch, that they had a life together before the murders, they had a child together, and that she knew the family quite well. And it turns out that it was lies. It was all complete lies, that this woman was outed as being another pathological liar, as well as a serial bigamist. It would seem that even her own son has opened up in interviews to say that his mother was a liar and a bigamist and some kind of a con artist who, just couldn't be trusted one way or another. And so we've got her telling us all of this that was clearly not true, that she didn't know Butch at all before the murders. In fact, she didn't know him until years into his sentence, incarceration. She didn't know him. She met him in prison while in the 80s, so I believe. So we're talking, quite a while after. And their marriage was said to not be official or legitimate because she was already married to someone else at the time and had never divorced. So, although she would have had some claim to him, she would have had some connection to him, we got something that was heavily embellished there and, really kind of twisted to give this woman a voice at that time, that was, that basically telling an awful lot of unfair and untrue things. Now, from the start, she's saying, I'm not doing this for money and I'm not doing it for fame. Well, I really failed to see what else she was hoping to gain from it then. because, to be telling lies to that degree, I mean, it's only going to end badly, So there's got to have been some kind of an ulterior motive there for her. Now, given that, it's pretty much debunked that she had any connection to the house, the murders, the family, you know, uh, it would seem even more ludicrous that she claimed to know so much about George and Kathy Lutz to the point where she was saying, where the hell did they get that down payment? As though she somehow knew a lot about this subject. Now, the suggestion was that it was all cooked up with William Webber from the start, and they were given the down payment for the house as part of the whole scam, this $20,000 that I believe it was. Now, that's something that, yeah, some people have hung on to that and said, yeah, there it is, there's the truth, it was all a scam. But even that doesn't really add up when thought about, more carefully. That, what would be the point of giving someone $20,000 to put down on a house that they otherwise couldn't afford? I mean, how the hell were they going to carry on paying for the rest of it? The rest of the mortgage, the utilities, the taxes, everything else. It's like, here's 20 grand, but, once you've spent that, you're going to get kicked out, aren't you? You're not going to keep the house because you can't afford it. I find that, again, ludicrous, preposterous, or whatever we want to call that. And I'd even call it barrel scraping for things to use against this family, all in the way of bringing them down, and also people trying to gain attention and notoriety for themselves for trying to out them as frauds and scammers and creators of a huge hoax that, it's not validated, it's not proved, it's not anything at all, but it's just people, trying to get their slice of the pie, if you like. And so these are, a lot of, well, sorry, some of the many things that I like to really, really point out and highlight to people when looking at this case, and when, trying to make some kind of an informed decision on their beliefs and theories and opinions, that, so many things just get thrown at us in a certain way, and then another way, and then another way. And it's like, well, which one do we believe? Very often, the answer is somewhere in between. Yeah, we got to kind of look at it all very carefully and objectively, and take from each one. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think I believe that. Yeah, that's ringing true to me. But that lot there and that lot there, that sounds like absolute nonsense. That's what we have to do. It's a subject where we can't just listen to one person or read one article or one book or anything like that to feel that we have all the answers. So it's something that, as I've said before, it takes a lot of looking into, and it's not something that you can do in a short time. What I will say, and this is purely one of my own theories, I mean, it's my theory and belief, that what Butch said and what Geraldine was saying was a hell of a lot of vicious lies. Yeah, we're talking things that was out to get attention. But it's also my theory that Butch was saying this as a last ditch attempt to, kind of claim some kind of, monetary rewards, kind of saying, well, I was the star of the show for being the murderer, and yet someone else, got their story told in a very famous book. So, are we talking someone who's really trying to gain notoriety there? Kind of, is there some kind of bitterness there that was just all spilling out? Yeah. I mean, we know now that Butch is no longer with us, but I mean, even if he was, a lot of people would say this. Would he ever have told the truth? And would we have ever known if he was telling the truth because he's told so many lies? Yeah. And so, yeah, this isn't something that's common knowledge to a lot of people. This documentary, that there might not be that many people who've seen it. It's very long, and it takes some watching, But this is something that I feel is very important, to know that what was put out there, is not reliable, far from it. So I'm going to leave it just for there, and I'll be continuing again shortly. Many blessings.